Hey, it's Jimmy Lee Lard, the Sock Snob, and I am always getting questions about how I make my greens, so I just wanted to show you here. I'm starting off, this is going to have pork in it, so I'm starting off with some spiral sliced ham and some onions, diced onions that I'm just sweating down. And then I'm going to remove these once, and I'm going to replace it later because this is going to be part of the meat in the greens. But I just need this flavor down into this pot. And then we'll, like I said, add it, reincorporate it a little bit later after I add some chicken stock and some ham hocks and let those cook. And then we'll be ready for the greens once I get those picked. So just wanted to show you how I start them off, and then I will be back with you shortly. All right, so here we go. These have sweated out all of its good old juices, and as you can see, they're there. So I'm going to remove the ham and the onions and place them in a bowl over here. And it's all right if some of the onions stay. Like I said, they're all going to be reincorporated in here anyway. But ultimately, you see that juice that's left in here? That's what we need, because the whole key to fixing good greens is to have the water as seasoned as possible. So once I add the chicken stock down to all of this stuff, and then I can add my ham hocks, baby, it's gonna be all right. At this stage, we have, like I said, all of this good liquor, these good juices from the spiral ham and onions that were in here. And I'm gonna turn the flame up. It was on low, and I'm just going to see if I can't scrape some of that into the water, because I'm telling you, this is the good flavor that we need right before we add the ham hocks. Alright, I think we have it all. So now look at the color of that water. Isn't that beautiful? So I'm going to add to this some water. And because I could have used chicken stock, or we use the powdered, I use the Knorr chicken bouillon. So I'm going to use about 1/4 of a cup in here. Alright. And I'm going to add my ham hocks here. So these have been washed up. And we are going to, I'm going to add a little bit more water just to cover these. And then I will let these boil and cook for, a nice little bit, maybe an hour and a half or so before I even add the first set of greens. All right? So stay with me, babies. So I wanted to show you something. I think I'd be remiss if I did not show you the color of that water. That is the beginning of what we call pot liquor. All right, for those of you country folks or descend from country folks like me, you know what I'm talking about. All right, so what I'm going to do is turn this down a little bit, and we're going to let this just cook up real nice and tender for, like I said, about an hour and a half. It'll sit here and cook before we add any greens to it. So in the meantime, I have a lot of greens to pick, wash, and chop, because I'm doing 3 pots of greens today. One with pork, some collards. I'm doing some mustard and turnips without pork. I'm doing smoked turkey for that. And then we have some vegetarian folks coming over to the fish fry as well. So I'm going to be doing a pot of vegetable greens. All right. Talk to you soon. Well, the moment of truth has arrived. These have cooked for about an hour and 45 minutes. You might see I have another pot going over there. Those are going to be my mustard and turnip greens that have smoked turkey. These collard greens, like we said, have ham hocks. So here we go. So you will see that now this just falls off of the bone. Now some people will remove this at this point and just leave, go ahead and remove the meat from the bone. So what I'm going to do is allow it to keep cooking, and then at the very end I'm going to remove the bone and then some of these big thick pieces of skin. But I want every bit of fat to render out of these ham hocks. So look at that meat before we remove it. So I'm just going ahead and allowing them to break up, or breaking them up, because it is time to add greens. And as I add greens, I also add my seasonings at that point. All right, and you might recall that we took out some ham and onions, and that's going to go back in. So I'm going to start adding in the greens. So the greens, you'll notice this is cooked down quite a bit. Greens will basically create more water. So there's water in the stems, even though I remove all of the stems. All right, but for those of you folks who'll be cooking glory greens, baby, you get a bag of stems, right? So I'm going to be doing just collards. I've already washed, picked, so you'll notice that they are down to manageable size. And then depending on how thick the collards are, because as collards age on their little stalk, they get thicker and obviously then more tough. So what I do then for the sort of baby collards, I will allow them to be cut thicker. See, these are very small baby leaves that are already tender, right? But when I get a thick collard, I'll cut that a lot thinner. All right, so that is basically how I manage to have them all end up equally tender in the end. So one of the most important things when you're trying to make collard greens is to have them tender and flavorful. So this is the first batch of greens that have been picked, cut, and washed. So what I do is I remove, like I said, the stems and any parts of the collards that I find that have any sort of defect. And at this point, I'm going to add a little bit of onion powder. And this is to taste, so it is not going to be any particular measurement. Although for this set of greens, it's probably going to end up being, I would say, about a teaspoon now, and then I'm going to do another teaspoon a little bit later. So that will probably be your gauge, about a teaspoon of each of the seasonings that I'm about to add. Okay, and like I said, we're going to season a little bit now. This is garlic powder. I'm also going to add a little bit of Creole seasoning or Cajun seasoning, whatever you have available. All right, and then your favorite sort of seasoning salt or accent, something that is not heavily based in salt. All right, so this is what it looks like now. I am going to close this up as they steam. You see the steam coming off of them. They are going to cook down, and I'm going to add more greens to the pot, and I'll be back. So here we are. We have the third and final batch of greens in here. And once again, we are going to add seasonings, the same amount as before. So onion powder first. Followed by garlic powder. And if I had to estimate, like I said, this is probably going to be, in the end, I would say for the amount of greens that we've cooked here, this is probably going to be about a tablespoon of each one of these seasonings that I'm adding here. And our Creole seasoning again. Like I said, you can use a Cajun seasoning. And this time, we're going to add some crushed red pepper flakes. That's going to give it a little kick. And you might remember we had our spiral ham from earlier and onions. So I'm going to put that right on top here. So this was originally the first thing in the pot. It's going back in and it's just going to sit right on top. So obviously these greens will be very meaty and very flavorful. So I'm going to go ahead and put the top back on, and we're going to let that simmer down. All right, we are at the end. Here are our collards. They have been cooking slowly for a long time. So the only thing, so they have about 30 minutes left. So what I do when I'm making greens is in the last 30 minutes, I hit it with seasoning. All of the same seasonings, not a lot, just enough. You know, when something is cooked for a long period of time, some of that seasoning that you put in before is gonna lose its potency. So you wanna go ahead and just kick it up a notch right at the end. And once again, it's the same seasonings: onion powder, garlic powder, a little accent, you know. And then I'll add a little creole seasoning as well. Not a lot, because I don't want to increase the salt content a whole lot. So here we go. And then I'll give this a stir. Really a toss. And we will once again let this cook for 30 minutes. So take a look at that pot liquor. Okay. Ooh, it's ready. Alrighty, so we'll let these cook for about another 30 minutes. And that is all she wrote. Thank you so much for watching.